Remember when a teen movie about pizza, pirate uniforms, and mall jobs accidentally launched multiple Oscar careers? In 1982, Fast Times at Ridgemont High hit theaters courtesy of Universal Pictures. What looked like just another sun-soaked R-rated high school comedy turned into a generational time capsule. Directed by Amy Heckerling and written by Cameron Crowe, the film starred a then unknown lineup that included Sean Penn, Judge Reinhold, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Forrest Whitaker, and a blink and you miss him Nicolas Cage. At the time, just a bunch of kids hanging out at the mall. In hindsight, the class of '82. But behind the Van slip-ons, Camaro carnage, and Damone's 5-point plan, there's a whole lot of weird that most of us never knew about. Today we're counting down 15 weird facts about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Stick around for number 1, because it involves undercover journalism, a real high school, and the moment that made this movie feel way too real. Number 15. The Academy Award class of '82. The guy smacking himself in the head with a sneaker would eventually own 2 Oscars. Nobody saw that coming. Fast Times was supposed to be a teen comedy about hormones, pizza delivery, and questionable life choices, yet somehow it doubled as a launching pad for 3 future Academy Award winners. Sean Penn, aka Jeff Spicoli, was ordering pizza to Mr. Hand's class and turning a stone surfer into one of the most quoted characters of the decade. Years later, Mystic River and Milk would earn him 2 Oscars. Forrest Whitaker was Charles Jefferson, calmly destroying an entire football team after his Camaro got wrecked. That quiet rage was already there long before the last king of Scotland earned him gold. And then there's Nicolas Cage, appearing uncredited in the background as one of Brad's buddies. He later said he auditioned for Brad, but didn't land it. A rejection that feels almost poetic given the wildly unpredictable career that followed. This wasn't prestige drama. It was a teen movie set at a mall food court. Most movies like this launch catchphrases. This one launched 3 Academy Award careers. Number 14. Tom Cruise almost played Brad Hamilton. Before Top Gun made him Maverick and Risky Business had him sliding across hardwood floors in his underwear, Tom Cruise auditioned for the role of Brad. He was still a teenager, fresh off taps and already radiating that locked-in, slightly terrifying intensity. The kind that launches billion-dollar franchises, not the kind that sells you a fish sandwich with a straight face. The filmmakers felt Cruise's energy didn't fit the easygoing, slightly hapless vibe Brad required.
Cruise was too locked in.
Brad needed to be humiliated. So Cruise passed, and went on to become the biggest movie star on the planet. Enter Judge Reinhold, who brought peak '80s everyman energy. Reinhold made Brad the guy you rooted for because you'd been him. Cruise would have made Brad the guy you were slightly afraid of. One casting decision, 2 completely different timelines. Number 13. Sean Penn barely auditioned and never left character. When Penn walked in to meet director Amy Heckerling, he basically said, "I know this guy."
And he did.
Penn showed up like he just wandered off the beach with sand still in his shoes. Heckerling later said she knew almost immediately. That's Spicoli. No extended audition required. And then he never came back to being Sean Penn on set. From day one, he stayed in character between takes, insisting cast and crew call him Jeff off camera, at lunch, always. If you called him Sean, you got nothing. If you called out Spicoli, you'd get that slow-motion surfer wave. His co-stars weren't totally sure if they were witnessing genius or a guy who'd fully baked in the California sun. Probably both. Penn goes on to become one of the most intense actors of his generation, but to this day, Spicoli remains one of his most recognized characters. Aloha, Mr. Hand outlasted decades of prestige roles. Number 12. Cameron Crowe couldn't get Led Zeppelin. You'd think if you were the teenage journalist who toured with Led Zeppelin in the '70s, the guy who practically lived on the tour bus, you'd have a little pull when you needed a favor. Turns out you don't. By 1982, Crowe had profiled the band for Rolling Stone and spent time on tour with them. So when he was putting together Fast Times, he naturally wanted Zeppelin on the soundtrack. Big riffs, big energy, perfect for that California cruising, windows down, early '80s vibe.
Wrong.
Led Zeppelin treated their catalog like it was locked in Fort Knox. No commercials, no random movies. Their famously iron-willed manager Peter Grant guarded that music carefully. Crow's tour bus history didn't move the needle. Doors closed, riffs denied. The soundtrack still worked, but imagine any Zeppelin track thundering over a Ridgemont High parking lot scene. That's an alternate 1982 we came this close to getting. Number 11. Spicoli's vans changed American mall culture. Sean Penn helped shape Spicoli's look, including selecting the black and white checkerboard van slip-ons that became the character's signature. At the time, vans were deeply rooted in Southern California's skate culture. If you weren't skating the streets of Long Beach or bumming around Venice Beach, you hadn't given them a second thought. Then Fast Times hit theaters, and every kid from Maine to Montana suddenly needed those slip-ons. The best part, there's no record of any formal product placement deal. No endorsement contract, no corporate strategy. Penn essentially handed Vans a 90-minute commercial completely free of charge. 40-plus years later, you can still buy the same checkerboard slip-ons in every mall in America. Vans owes Sean Penn a pizza statue, or at the very least a lifetime supply of cheese sticks. Number 10. They filmed at a real working mall. Director Amy Heckerling didn't want a fake backlit mall or a dressed-up soundstage. She wanted the real Valley epicenter. So they filmed inside the actual fully operating Sherman Oaks Galleria, which means some of those background shoppers may have been real 1982 mallgoers genuinely wondering what was happening near the Orange Julius. The all-American burger interiors were filmed on a sound stage, but exterior and mall area shots were on location, and the Galleria's energy is baked into every scene. After Fast Times, the Galleria became the gold standard. Every teen movie wanted that fluorescent, freedom at the food court energy. The original Galleria was eventually redeveloped in the mid-90s. The arcade's gone. The Orange Julius probably costs you $9 now. But for 90 minutes, that mall lives forever. Number 9. The greatest soundtrack betrayal of 1982. There's a scene in Fast Times burned into the memory of every person who saw it. Phoebe Cates, the pool, the slow-motion exit, Judge Reinhold's daydream, and the song underneath all of it was moving in stereo by the cars. You cannot hear those opening notes without your brain auto-completing the rest. One of the most recognized music cues in 80s cinema, period. So, naturally, when you rushed out to buy the official Fast Times soundtrack, it wasn't there. Not on side A, not hiding on side B, just gone. Due to licensing constraints, Moving in Stereo was left off the official 1982 release despite being the single most memorable piece of music in the entire film. The most unforgettable music moment in the movie didn't make the movie's own soundtrack. You had one job, Elektra. One job. Totally bogus. Number 8. The pizza scene started real copycats. The pizza delivery scene is one of the most quoted moments in 80s comedy. Spicoli orders a full pizza to Mr. Hand's classroom. Delivery guy walks right in, hands over the box mid-lecture. No shame, no hesitation, no apology. Nobody anticipated what happened after the movie came out. Fast Times turned pizza to class into a nationwide dare. Suddenly, every school in America had at least one kid calling Domino's from the pay phone and giving the delivery driver a room number. Teachers spent the rest of the 80s intercepting pizza guys in hallways and confiscating slices, like contraband. All because one scene gave an entire generation the same terrible, beautiful idea at the exact same time. Most of us were too terrified of our own Mr. Hand to even chew gum in class. But for the brave few who actually tried it, y'all are legends. Number 7. The Z28 tragedy and a legend's debut. In the early 80s, a Chevy Camaro Z28 was the pinnacle of high school parking lot royalty. Owning one meant you'd made it. Wrecking one meant someone was going to end you. Spicoli chose violence. We never actually see the crash, just the aftermath and Spicoli's panicked retelling, and honestly, that's worse. Your imagination does all the heavy lifting. Then comes the cover-up, peak teenage logic. Spicoli tries to pin the damage on Lincoln High, no forensic planning, no alibis, just desperation and a dream. Jefferson buys it completely. Revenge follows, and then he takes whatever fury is left onto the football field and plays like the Z28's ghost is coaching him from the sideline. One joyride, one cover-up, one of the most satisfying chain reactions in 80s comedy. Number 6. Damone's 5-point plan used to be 3. If you were a nervous 16-year-old at the spring fling, the 5-point plan wasn't comedy. It was gospel. But in Cameron Crowe's original book, it wasn't even 5 points. It was 3. When they adapted it for the screenplay, somebody wisely realized 3 rules weren't enough to support Damon's persona. So they upgraded it to 5. More build-up, more delusion, more comedy. Robert Romanus delivered the whole thing like he was teaching a masterclass at Harvard Business School. For about 90 seconds, he makes it sound airtight, like he's cracked the romantic code of the universe. At least half of us tried point 4 at a party. Lean against a wall, nod like you're above it all, pretend you meant to be standing alone by the punch bowl. The plan crashes and burns spectacularly in the movie, because taking relationship advice from a ticket scalper might not be the path to emotional maturity. But for one glorious moment, Damon gave an entire generation of awkward teenagers something priceless. Confidence. Completely unearned, wildly misguided, but confidence nonetheless. Number 5. Amy Heckerling nailed it on her first film. Fast Times was her feature film debut. She was 27 years old, fresh out of the AFI Conservatory, handed the keys to a movie full of unknowns, mall food courts, and enough R-rated chaos to make a studio executive sweat through a sport coat. In 1982, most directors would have treated this material like a punchline factory. Laugh at the dumb kids, cash the check. Heckerling went the other way. She made you laugh, but she also made you feel something. The meltdowns are hilarious, but you ache for the guy because you've been that guy. She later directed Clueless and Nailed Teenagers in 2 completely different decades. It all started here, with a debut director who looked at a raunchy teen comedy and found something real underneath it. Number 4. Nancy Wilson had a hidden cameo. Brad Hamilton is stuck at a red light, drowning in a Captain Hook meets Deep Fryer uniform, looking like he lost a bet with the costume department. A woman in the next car takes one look and cracks up laughing. That woman was Nancy Wilson from Heart, as in Barracuda, Crazy on You, Hall of Fame royalty. The cameo happened because Wilson was dating Cameron Crowe at the time. They married in 1986, and that connection kept paying dividends. Wilson eventually composed the score for Almost Famous, Crowe's semi-autobiographical film about his teenage years as a rock journalist. The woman who laughed at Brad's worst moment helped score one of the most beloved music films ever made. Number 3. Mr. Hand was based on a real teacher. Mr. Hand wasn't some cartoon villain cooked up in a writer's room. He was real, based on an actual teacher obsessed with one concept: his time. Not school time, shared time, his time. Every whisper, every distraction, every rogue slice of pepperoni was a personal theft from the man's lifespan. They cast Ray Walston, a seasoned pro who understood that true authority doesn't yell, it withers. Mr. Hand worked because he wasn't evil. He genuinely wanted you to learn U.S. history and stop acting like Woodstock was still happening in the hallway. He might have been the only adult in the building thinking long-term. Number 2. Universal's $5 million gamble. The studio's plan was simple. Hand a first-time director $5 million, let her make a throwaway teen movie, sell some tickets, and move on. Nobody told the audience that. The movie raked in over $27 million domestically, more than 5 times its budget. Teens were lining up, sneaking in, and dragging their friends back for second and third viewings. An R-rated comedy with no major stars outperformed movies with 10 times the marketing muscle. Hollywood realized that if you treat teenagers like actual humans with awkward moments, bad jobs, and social humiliation, they will throw money at you gladly. Universal got a pile of cash. We got a cultural touchstone. Fair trade. Number 1. Cameron Crowe went undercover in a real high school. Most writers researched a movie by reading books or conducting interviews. Cameron Crowe enrolled in high school. Not as a guest, not as an observer with a clipboard, as a student. In 1979, the 22-year-old convinced the principal at Ridgemont High in San Diego to let him pose as a senior under the name Dave Cameron. 1 full year. Classes, pep rallies, cafeteria mystery meet, the whole experience. Crowe had already road-tripped with Led Zeppelin at 16 and written for Rolling Stone as a teenager, yet he decided the real story was hiding in a suburban high school hallway. He soaked up everything. The gossip, the parking lot conversations, the awkward dances, the kid who actually had a pizza delivered to class mid-lecture. Every moment written down in field notes like a war correspondent embedded in 10th period. That's why Fast Times doesn't sound like adults guessing what teenagers talk like. The dialogue came from real conversations in real hallways, real food courts, and real classrooms. When the book came out, the students at Claremont finally realized what happened. The quiet older kid, who never said much in homeroom, had been documenting everything. Spicoli, the surfer burnout blueprint for every stoner character in cinema since, was inspired by real students Crow observed at Claremont High. Most 22-year-olds in 1979 were trying to figure out rent. Crow was building a time capsule, one that launched future Oscar winners, redefined the teen comedy, and gave us a movie we're still quoting over 4 decades later. All because one guy raised his hand in a high school he had no business being in and said, "Yeah, I'm Dave. I'm new here." From undercover journalism to Oscar-winning actors who started out ordering pizza in class, Fast Times at Ridgemont High was so much more than a teen comedy. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you're subscribed for more weird facts from the movies and shows that raised us. And remember, no matter how sunny the parking lot looks, someone's always clocking your time. Thanks for watching. This is Remember When, and we'll see you in the next one.